house needs painting, the grass needs mowing. Where's he at?
Hey, this is Earl. That show was stronger than the Sonic Boom.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hank Parker Off the Water. So we're having a big time doing our podcast. I got my beautiful co-host, my granddaughter, Sarah Beth.
Hello.
And we're just answering questions, talking about the past. And today we're going to be talking about innovation, how things have changed over the years.
Absolutely. I have a question for you since you've been around for forever. And I mean forever. I mean the dawn of time. I mean going back, you're going to have to tell me how those Stone Ages were.
Here we go.
What is the most innovative thing that's come along that's like really helped anglers the most? What's helped you the most over the years that you've really seen? It could be, technology-wise, trolling motors. Tell me what's helped you the most.
I tell you, that is a broad question, and I don't really think that you can answer that. Let's go step by step. When I started, it was fiberglass fishing rods. Man, they weigh 12, 15, 20 ounces, 5.5 foot long. A long rod with a 6 foot rod. Amazing what has happened with graphite rods. Low profile reels that weigh 5 ounces. Our old reels weighed 18 ounces. And anytime you remove mass, you increase sensitivity. When I was young and first started fishing the bass tournaments, I remember an article in Bassmaster magazine. Bill Dance, he used to fish and still does even, fish sitting down. And that was customary for everybody back in those days. Everybody sat down. You had swivel seats in your boat, and you sat down and said, what is the correct way to set the hook on a plastic worm? And that is you break the seat. And Dance did that on one of his blooper shows. He broke the seat and went right out the side of the boat. But that's how much force you use to set the hook on a plastic worm when you Texas rigged it. You put the hook back into the worm. Well, here comes Lou Childers. Lou Childers, who is the founder of Lou's, he comes down to a bass tournament, and he's talking about, hey, guys, how you guys set the hook? Boy, you're a big old strong guy looking at me. I was much overweight. I don't know how strong I was, but he said, you're a big old boy. I bet you can put a lot of pressure on a hook set. And I said, yes, sir, I think I can. He said, well, let's test that out. Let's see how much pressure you can put on. He said, I got a little scale here that we can put in the bottom of this swimming pool. I got suction cups on it, and we can set this thing down, and we can see how much pressure you put on a hook set from, let's back up here to the back of this pool about 20 feet. So you're at about 55, 60 feet. Now, how many pounds of pressure do you think with that big old fat fishing rod you got, how many pounds of pressure can you put on the end of that line to set a hook? You have to have about 3 pounds of pressure to get that hook through the worm and into the fish's mouth. So you think you can put, 3 pounds. I think I can put 15, 20 pounds. Yeah.
All right, come on, Hercules.
Yeah.
Come on.
You're a big old boy. So I'm sure you can. Let's see how much you can do. So, man, I wound down and I jerked just as hard as I could, and I put 4 pounds. I thought, that can't be right. And I did it again, and we had 4 or 5 other people, and we're all stepping up there. Now, this is what everybody believed the right way to set the hook. Man, you wind down, and you take that whole rod, and you jerk and put as much strength into setting the hook as you possibly can. And so when we all got through, Lou said, let me show you something about setting a hook. He took a Lou's Speed Stick, which was an innovative fishing rod with a cool-looking leather pistol grip handle and a little old Lou's profile reel that looked like a toy compared to what we were using. And he would wind that thing down, and he would almost like cracking a whip. He'd feed it a little bit of line like cracking a whip, go shoo. He'd generate 6 pounds. He blew us all away. So I learned from that point, I learned speed. Anytime you remove mass, weight off of that rod, you increase sensitivity. Anytime you remove mass off of that rod, you increase the ability to have a faster hook set. So Lou named everything speed stick, speed spool. It was all about speed. So one of the most innovative things that has ever come about is the change to rods. You look at rods, and then you look at reels. I mean, we're talking about 10-to-1 gear ratio now. When I remember when the old Ambassador reels that everybody used in the old days were 3.7, they came out to a 5-to-1 gear ratio. Now we got 10-to-1 gear ratio. And the old 5-to-1 weighed about 13 ounces. Now we got them at weigh 5.4, 5.6, 5.7 ounces. We don't even talk about an ounce anymore. We talk about a point of an ounce if we're going to take it out of a reel.
Yeah.
So that's extremely innovative. If you look back at the lure development, man, you didn't have a selection. We talk about fishing lures as being a tool. Man, you didn't have but maybe 10 or 11 manufacturers with there were a lot of homemade baits, but from a marketing standpoint for national baits, man, you just had a handful. People used to take tackle boxes, take a tackle box, and that would be enough. You could put every lure you could own in it.
Yeah.
And now I have to pull a Z521 Ranger behind my other one to have room for my tackle. Man, we got everything. And it's amazing how tackles change. Then we look at trolling motors. I ran Minn Kotas from the early on in my career because they were quiet. They had terrible brackets. Man, you'd break them off the boat. I mean, they were just terrible. And cable issues, all sorts of things. Man, you look at the motor I run today, it's just all but foolproof. And I got a little button I can hit that says spot lock, and it'll stay in the same place because it reads off the satellite. I mean, it's crazy, the innovation in troll motors. And now Minn Kota's got a new brushless troll motor that's got more power than you ever had before, and it's like 25% more battery efficient.
Yeah.
Innovation, innovation, innovation. And now we come to boats. People say, boy, look how much boats cost. Oh, my goodness, how much they cost. Well, let's go and take everything off of that boat and go back to the old days. The old days, we ran 150 horsepower. Well, that's about half the price of what a 250 costs. We ran one depth finder. We ran a 12-volt trolling motor with one battery. So let's take all the stuff off of this boat. Maybe the boats hadn't gone up quite as much, but we put $30,000 worth of electronics. We put $4,000 worth of lithium batteries. We got all this Cadillac stuff. Man, these boats have got everything.
Yeah. I mean, you can watch, you can see your fish come up and bite the bait, or
That's forward facing sonar. You're
I'm
right.
like, that is insane to me. Like just thinking about that type of technology, I'm like, well, no wonder it's so expensive. I'm like, what happened to get into like a canoe? You didn't even have a motor.
Well,
had to
you
row
can
your
still
way.
do that. You can actually still fish out of a canoe, but I like that Ranger boat myself. I'm pretty partial to that, and I like all those luxury items. It's just innovation, and things are more expensive, but God, look how much more advanced they are. And then when you get into sonar, there's so much controversy over the sonar. It's almost ridiculous. But I tell people all the time, if you want to complain about technology, and we think about, I talked about Buck Perry in one of my earlier shows, and he had trolling spoons to see how deep it was. And now we've got forward-facing sonar where you can literally watch a fish live and watch him come up, and you can see your lure on the screen and see him eat that lure. It's pretty crazy. But that technology is progress. It's just the way it is. Think about how a lawyer feels. A lawyer that's 70 years old, from the time he got out of law school, every awakened minute that he had that he could call spare time, he sat in his library and he read law books and read law books and read law books, and he tried to learn as much as he could. Today, you can take a cell phone and Google anything that guy learned all those years. So a guy can come and pass the bar, get his license to practice law, and he knows as much as that 70-year-old lawyer that studied the books for 50 years just by Google. It's
Yeah.
technology. You're not going to change technology. So all the complaining about forward-facing sonar, all the complaining about the expense of all the new equipment, all the complaining about the price of boats, tow vehicles, you don't have to have all of that. You do not have to have all of that to be a good fisherman. There's a guy on the pro circuit named John Cox. John says, I don't want all that stuff. Man, I'm just going fishing. And he's one of the most competitive guys out there, and he don't use any of that. So you don't have to have it. You can still enjoy fishing on what level is affordable for you.
Right.
And all the technology and all the innovation that has made it better from the time I started. Fishing line. Man, fishing line, I used to break my line 3 or 4 times a week at least, sometimes 8 or 10. I don't ever break a line hardly anymore. It's the quality, and Berkeley has been the leader in that, and they continue to do that. And they test, and even though they had the market share, the line market share of premium line, they never stopped innovating. They always want to make their product better. And that's what drives progress, and that's why it's so beneficial to the angler. It's so much better today than it was 20 years ago, and it's so much more dependable. But now I'm going to land, and I'm going to try to answer the original question. You asked me how to wind in a fish, and I'm going to tell you how to make the reel and build it from the springs to the frame and all the way up. So I'm going to answer the question now. The most innovative thing to benefit an angler, I think it's Lake Master maps. The maps that I can put into my Humminbird depth finders. There's other companies that have them. I don't think anybody's got as good a mapping system as Lake Master, and I'm biased, and I'll establish that up front. So you may have a different brand that you think is better,
Right.
and I'm okay with that. But I think the Lake Master map, and I set my maps where anything, if I'm in any state other than Florida, I set my maps where anything under 10 feet is red. So I can go to a lake that I've never been on before, and I can go down that lake and feel assured that I'm not going to run up on a rock pile or run aground, because all I have to do is dodge the red spots.
There you go.
And then it has a graduating scale, color scale, that I can see the contour of every break line. I never have to go up and down as I did in the old days with my depth finder, riding trying to find the sweet spot, find right where that island point goes into the water on a taper that fish like to gang up on. I don't have to look for that anymore over and over and over again using my electronic. I just look at my map. And I know exactly where those fish ought to be. I know exactly how to line up on it. I don't have to waste any time, so I can navigate with confidence that I'm not going to run aground. I can find in the fog, or if a cloud cover comes in, I get in a rainstorm that is so raining so hard that you can't hardly see.
Yeah.
I can look at my GPS and navigate safely
Yeah.
to get back to the hill or the boat ramp or wherever I'm going.
Yeah.
So if I had to say the one thing that has benefited me, and again, I clarified this up front. It's hard to say that because I use the rods and the reels and the line and the lures and the trolling motors and the boats and all the technology. I use all of that, and it all benefits me. But the one thing, if I had to say, that has changed for me, I go somewhere I've never been before, all I have to do is dodge the red spots, and I'm not going to run aground. I'm not going to hit a rock pile.
There you go. Well, on the topic of innovation, I have a question for you. Are fishing rods, reels, and baits still like innovated today, or do you think they've kind of like maxed out the innovation of those products? Like, do you think they're kind of hit as far as they can go?
I've always said, I don't know how. Every time I'd sit in a Ranger boat, I'd say, how in the world can they improve on this boat? I'd get my new Lew's rod and reel, and I think, there is no way possible. This thing weighs 5 ounces. My reel has a 6.7 gear ratio, weighs 5 ounces on a rod that weighs 3.5 ounces. How in the world are you going to improve? I don't know, but they always find a way.
Hey.
It's crazy. So no, one day when you're my age, you're going to be sitting there looking and say, this is the primitive stuff my pawpaw fished with. They're going to blow it away. And as you go through the years, you learn. A lot of things get hyped up that don't pan out. And a lot of things that doesn't get a much publicity or much notoriety turns out to be a game changer. You know, back in the 80s, a friend of mine named Royal Barton came out with an electric reel. We're going to change the world. Man, we're going to change the world. You can take that reel and you put a little battery pack on your side. Ken Cook and I, man, we bit into this thing. I mean, we bit into it wide open. You can take this thing and push the button and it retrieves, and you don't waste any time when you're flipping. You can pitch that thing under that boat dock, you hit it 3 or 4 times. If you don't hit it, you push that little button and it winds it in twice as fast as you can. That electric reel is going to revolutionize fishing. That is the next big thing. You better jump on board. Well, I jumped on board and it didn't go over too good. So there are a lot of things that people make claims it's going to be the innovative game changer of the world that don't pan out.
Flops.
Yep. I remember the old color selector. You drop a little probe down in the water and it tell you what color.
Ooh.
What color lure. And there were some of the ugliest color lures came out because of that color selector.
Oh, man.
But it didn't go over real big, and it didn't change the world. So there are a lot of things that we promote and we pump up. It's gonna revolutionize fishing that doesn't do it, and then there's other things that doesn't get a whole lot of notoriety, and all of a sudden it becomes an essential. So
Right. Well, circling back to the topic of lures and baits, I know you have your classic spinnerbait out now, and you have your pawpaw bait coming out soon. Tell me how you kind of got started on that. Like, tell me the story behind how you got started in the bait business.
Well, we're living in an era that it's very common for people, and especially if you live in my home, I think Amazon delivers 3 times a day, that you don't have to leave your house to get exactly what you want. And so I built the classic spinnerbait. It all happened by accident. I had a friend of mine, Bill Morgan, who owned Hog Collar Lure Company, and he used to build my heads for me. He would pour the lead and have the wires in place, and then I would assemble the baits. And I had all these big boxes of swivels and blades and beads, and I'd put all these different baits together. Well, one day I was going to Missouri to fish in a tournament, and I called Bill at Hog Collar, and I said, hey, I need some 3/4 ounce heads. Well, they ended up, he had a bunch of college boys helping him. And Bill Morgan, he played golf on the seniors golf tournament. So he was out on a seniors golf tournament, and he wasn't in his shop. And so he had these college boys build these baits for me. And they poured the heads and painted them. And I met them on the side of the interstate as I was going to Missouri, and I just threw the box in my car. Well, when I got up there, they had poured the 3/4 ounce on the 1/2 ounce jig. So the wire was really short coming from the head to the tie. And I thought, man, this ain't gonna work. This don't look right. It's all I had. So I put different blades on them, and I made them up. Well, it turned out to be God sent. It was amazing. Man, I could fish that bait where you couldn't ever fish a long arm spinnerbait because it'd roll over. And a spinnerbait is weedless as long as it stays upright. But if it rolls over or canters in any direction, it's less weedless. So this bait just stayed true because of the low profile and the wire. Well, I won so many tournaments on it, and then at the Super Bass tournament on the St. Johns River, I had the second day of that tournament, It was a 4-day event. I didn't do real well that second day because I had a lot of fish short hitting my big willow leaf bladed 3/4 ounce spinnerbait. So I went back in the hotel and I started going through all my blades, and I made up about 15 different types of spinnerbaits. And the one that I made up with a Colorado nickel in the front and a gold number 7 Indiana on the back became a magic bait. I won 3 tournaments on it. I won a pile of money. I won that Super Bass on it. And it's just, I don't know why. It is just a magic blade combination. You know, a willow leaf puts off a lot of flash. Colorado blade puts off a lot of vibration. And that Indiana blade is between the two. It puts off a fair amount of flash and a fair amount of vibration. And it just is the perfect combination. So we brought that thing out, Man's Bait Company. I worked with Tom forever and then Frank Ulrich over at Man's. And we brought that thing to market in 1990 and literally sold several million of them. It was probably the number 1 selling spinnerbait and may still be the number 1 selling spinnerbait of all time. And when I moved on from Man's, we stopped making that bait. And it was just a big void. And everywhere I go, people would say, man, I wish you'd come back out with that spinnerbait. I wish you'd come back out with that spinnerbait. And so I'm out of them myself, and I'm building them for myself. So I've never been out. I've always handmade them and built them for myself. And anytime anybody'd find out, they'd take my baits. So I'm building a lot of baits. And so I thought, you know, I'm going to bring that bait back to market. There's no bait out there like it. It's a very, very special bait for whatever reason, and I'm going to bring it back to market. So I decided to do that, and we did HP Baits, and you can order them direct, and we ship them straight to you, and you don't have to go to the store. You can be like Martha, and you can get Amazon to bring them to the door.
Yeah, guilty as charged. I think that might be genetic. Blame her.
Well, you got to have somebody to talk about. So.
There you go.
She's not here. She's not here to rebuttal, so we'll blame it on Martha.
I hear that.
Well, and so we keep the bait business going. I got Pawpaw coming out. That is a bait that this bait was actually the first time I ever saw a bait like this was in probably the mid to late 70s, and it came out under a different name. And then the guy that brought it out, he died. And another one of his kin people brought it to market, and they did a terrible job. They didn't put good hooks, good split rings. The packaging was terrible, and they brought it out. And then another fella picked up on it and brought out a great bait. He really made it a super bait, but it was very expensive, and he didn't prevail, so I bought it, and I reverse engineered it. I've improved it. I've made a lot of changes, and we got a lot of different colors. There's a floating model, a slow sinking model, and a fast sinker. The fast sinker fishes much like any conventional lipless crankbait. The slow sinker and the floater, you can fish it like a suspend and jerk bait. It's so erratic, and you can wind it down, stop it, jerk it, get it to really look like a suspend and jerk bait. It's a very cool bait, so we got that coming out on the market.
That's very exciting. I will say, I mean, I've seen all these baits firsthand, and I thought that the red one, beautiful. Never seen a red color like that on the market. I remember you telling me a little bit about that color, if you kind of wanted to go into that a little bit.
Money red. That is, it's just such a Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma color, but now, boy, I fish Lake Murray all the time. Red is such a dominant color there in the winter and the spring, so we got money red. I have a friend of mine named John Pryor, and John paints lures, and he's an artist. He calls himself a lure painter, but he's an artist. It's unbelievable. Well, he's got all these colors that he's painted lures for 15 different lure companies over the years, but he's never really lent out a few of these colors. So I said, John, I want that color. He said, okay, you can have that color. John, I want that one. Okay. So I've talked him out of about 13 different colors. And so Pawpaw's coming in 14 different colors, and it's all by the artist, John Pryor, all these colors. And they're just, I had about 25 baits, and I'm going to narrow it down to 10 colors. I could not do it. I absolutely could not. 14 was as low as I could go. So we got 14 new colors of Pawpaw coming out, and that's going to be here in probably about 60 days. We're looking to have Pawpaw on the market.
That's so exciting. I know we've gotten a lot of feedback about that. When is it coming out? When's it coming out? And I think we're all excited to just get it on the market and get that to you guys.
We've got television shows coming out. I had one last week where I caught about an 8-pounder and about a 6-pounder on the same, one on the front hook of the Pawpaw and one on the back hook, and I landed them with no dip net. So that was so exciting, and that's pretty cool. Pawpaw is an awesome bait, and I can't wait to get it in people's hands. We're getting so much feedback about the classic spinnerbait, how well it's working for people, how they love it, and how they like the quality and the way it performs. And I can't wait to get Pawpaw out there and get that feedback. And by the way, if you're one of those guys that's got a classic spinnerbait and you catch a big fish on it, send us a picture, man. I want to see them. I think it's awesome.
Please do. Absolutely. I mean, that's honestly the biggest testimony of it all is, seeing the results. I feel like that's such a big thing. You can try to sell something all day long, but if the results aren't there, I mean, really what you have to go off of.
It is exciting filling orders, but it's more exciting for me to get the testimonial, say, man, I really like that bait. You wouldn't believe the fish I caught on it. Well, show it to me because I want to believe it.
Yeah, right. All right.
Well, we're having a big time doing our podcast. I hope you enjoy it. And again, I'm going to encourage you once again to subscribe, get on board with us, and also to send me your questions. If you've got something you think I can answer, if you got a question for Sarah Beth.
Yeah.
You ready to answer one?
Yeah.
2, 3,
Yeah.
4?
I'm wide open.
I like
Send
that.
them in.
So whatever you got, send it our way, man. We're having fun doing this. Hope you enjoy watching, and we look forward to hearing from you. And I appreciate you being with me. Tell them goodbye, Sarah Beth.
Goodbye. See you
Sarah.
guys next time.
Sarah Beth.
Sarah
Goodbye,
Beth.
Sarah.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Sarah Beth.
Hey, thanks for
cheesy.
being with us. God bless you. I'll see you next week.
The house
I'm Hank
needs
Parker.
painting, grass needs mowing. Where's he at?
Hey, this is Earl. Nice show was stronger than the Sonic Boom.
Gone fishing.